Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another rendition of the weekly wrap-up. No stream last week. It was pretty busy, but we'll do one this week for sure. So like up the stream. We're almost to 100 likes. We'll get started. When we get to 100 likes, we have a lot to discuss. 2025 elections kind of on the back burner now. I mean, we covered them. Democrats won as expected, but won by more than I think some people expected in some cases, which has led to a lot of introspection, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of infighting, which already was a thing. So many people were already doing it, and it kind of ramped up, which is kind of interesting because you wouldn't really expect it to keep going weeks after the fact. And Donald Trump has now come out and said no to MTG after she's gone down a weird turn where she's going to the fringe and the center at the same time. The whole thing is weird. The whole thing is strange. But we'll cover it. We'll talk about Trump, his H1B take, or what really wasn't even an H1B take, but people tried to frame it as such and then try to use that to discredit what Donald Trump was saying, what he was doing, etc. A lot of people just consistently misrepresenting the president. The Epstein emails get released, and Donald Trump once again is vindicated on all fronts. Democrats run the zone flood of misinformation for about an hour, then it blows up in their face. Now Trump wants to go out there and release the files vocally, saying he wants to put an end to it. Again, the whole thing is a bit of a head scratcher from the get-go. So they're going to be released, but why are they going to be released? Like, there's a lot of people asking questions about why did this turn into this whole mess. But either way, one thing is true. One thing we do know, that Trump is very likely not guilty in whatever they're saying, including according to the Epstein emails themselves. And Democrats are going out there and saying, release the files. Now, Trump is okay with it. I don't know if this was like a massive bait campaign, but what it did was the discourse has been ruined by and large because of it. So either way, it hasn't been all great. But one thing we do know is that we hit 100 likes, and we'll get started. We'll talk about Trump disavowing MTG, denouncing her, saying he's not supporting her. You might say disavowal is not the proper term, but he basically did. He said, she's not a part of the movement we want anymore. So we'll get into that. Trump disavowing MTG. I think we have to configure the scroll because it is kind of outdated. So we will do that right now, and there we go. We should be good. We should be good to go. And Donald Trump and we'll read his statement and we'll go over his statement because I thought it was entertaining. And he put out another one where he said, Marjorie Taylor Brown, when grass rots, it turns brown from green to brown, which is pretty funny. And a lot of people are angry about this. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be upset with some of the things that I say in this stream, to which I say, I just don't care. I want to win. I want to save this country. If you don't like that because I am right about something or will be proven eventually right about something, come back to me later. That's fine. But as of right now, here's the deal. We're going to break it down, and I'm going to explain why this is the right move for Trump, and I'll go over the counter arguments and why I don't buy them, because I don't. And Trump says, I'm withdrawing my support and endorsement. Endorsement for some reason is capitalized, support is not. I don't know why. Of Congresswoman, in quotes. It would have been funnier if he put woman in quotes if you've seen those pull-up videos. MTG of the great state of Georgia. Over the past few weeks, despite my creating record achievements for our country, including a total and complete victory on the shutdown, closed borders, low taxes, no men in women's sports, or transgender for everyone, ending DEI, stopping Biden's records, and then he goes on, stopping 8 wars, etc. He says, hottest country anywhere in the world, which if there's a legitimate grievance with some of Trump's recent rhetoric, I think it's like the everything is going great stuff, which it seems like he's easing off of, which I think is a good thing, because a lot of Americans, including many people that voted for Trump, don't like the state of the economy. And the more that he says it's going great, because that's just part of his personality, the more that people may become disaffected. So there is that argument that I think is a legitimate criticism. I think you can tout the positives, because there are positives. It's not like there's no negatives with the economy. So tout the positives, and then you could put the negatives on Biden, but say, trust the process. I think if you just said that, it'd do wonders for the approval rating. Some of the advisors, I think, have looked at the past election results and have said, okay, this is the problem. A lot of new Trump voters sitting out these elections compared to Democrat voters. Why is that? Valid questions to ask, for sure. You have to change on the fly. Trump is changing on the fly to an extent. And he goes on to say, all I see wacky Marjorie do is complain, complain, complain. It seemed to be... it all seemed to begin when I sent her a poll stating she should not run for Senate or governor when she was at 12%, didn't have a chance, and she wasn't about to get... And that's true. Like, MTG would lose a statewide race in Georgia no matter what she was running for. Like, she will. Now, maybe not these days, because she's trying to be a centrist who is also somehow, like, at the same time, like, fringe right. Like, the whole thing is bizarre. The left and the media and how they're playing into it, because they like the division. They're propping up bad faith actors left and right. They're trying to bait the right to become a false dichotomy. And so many losers are playing into this false dichotomy of unpalatable retards and unpalatable retards, neither of whom will win an election, neither of whom serve a legitimate threat to the system, whether they believe they do or they don't. All they do is just bicker against each other, and sometimes you'll hear a legitimate point or gripe, but there's so many people that have bad intentions as to where the movement goes, and it feels like you had Charlie Kirk holding it all together, and then now he's out of the picture. What do you have? You have MTG going out there taking drive-by shots at Trump, and Trump rightfully disavows. He rightfully says no more, and I think it's good. Because people will say, well, she doesn't take money from AIPAC. I don't care. I literally do not care. I've stopped caring at all about the issue, because the people that care about the issue, their brain turns into complete mush, and they start doing things like going on The View and insinuating that Donald Trump is some sort of quote-unquote pedophile. But then she fails to disavow when asked an actual pedophile enabler who served as somebody's Ghislaine Maxwell and was unapologetic about it. She didn't disavow when asked, but she did on record 2 years ago. Very strange how it's all a turn, and Trump comes into play. The whole thing is a big mess. It's a grifting operation. Whether you want to say it's foreign money that's being involved or whatever, it doesn't matter. The whole thing is, I don't care if she takes money or she takes money from AIPAC or does it via insider trading. Because she does it via insider trading, which I think is a far greater point of corruption than AIPAC, whatever it is. And I'm not a big fan of big money in politics altogether, but you're not going to sit here and try to convince me that that's the number one litmus test in politics. Because if it is, you have a party out there that does that. It's called the Democrats. You have your Ilhan Omars, you have your AOCs, your lunatic people. You want to team up with those people, go right ahead. Inadvertently, you're doing it one way or another because you're helping them win with your idiocy. But that's not the point. Trump goes on and on here. He says she's told many people she's upset that I don't return her phone calls anymore. But with 219 congressmen and / women, 53 senators, 24 cabinet members in 200 countries, and otherwise, that's the best part, an otherwise normal life to lead. I can't take a ranting lunatic's call every day. And he knows she's crazy. She's become obsessed. She's obsessed with, all she does is talk about how, she'll take these drive-by shots at Trump, then she'll talk about how evil the Israel lobby is. That she's a two-trick pony. And neither trick is helping us get to where we need to be. And Trump realizes that, so he's like, just get out. And then she calls people sexist and says they're paid $7,000 if they decide to say anything negative about her, and mentions influencers on the right. There's only been really a few that have called her out, saying Republican men, sounding like a leftist in doing so, and goes on The View and says she's talking about me, if not other people, but I think I'm one of them, because I'm one of the few people that actually has had the balls to stand up and say, this woman, she's not right. She's not right in the head anymore. She's never really been that right in the head, but at least she used to be a loudmouth about the right things. She's always been a trashy loudmouth. She was a loudmouth about the right things. Now she's a loudmouth about the wrong things. And that's, in my opinion, a problem. And you're not helpful. You don't make us look good. You're bending over backwards for, The View appearances, Real Time, CNN, all this stuff. We don't have a use for you, Marjorie. You don't serve us anymore. And we need to primary her out. I don't know with who, but yeah, she's not helpful. She's not helpful. If you prevent us from winning, you are the enemy. That's always been what I've said, and that's always going to be what I say because it's true. It doesn't mean Trump is perfect or you can't critique him or anything like that. But what it tells me is that you are a problem when you do this at every turn. You are not serving the same agenda. I don't know whose agenda you're serving. It's not the same agenda, and you're not really welcome here. And that's basically what it is. Massey as well, as another example of somebody who votes against most, if not all, of Trump's agenda. Even though it's like 95% of a bill is good, he'll throw a temper tantrum and try to sink the bill because of the rest of it. It's ridiculous. Rand Paul's done the same thing. It's like, if you're a libertarian, I get it, but you got to play ball. You can't be too antagonistic and expect support from the movement at large, which some of your ideas might be good, some of your ideas might be not so good. Thomas Massey, as the Republican nominee for president, would get his ass kicked. He would get pummeled. He would lose Ohio. He would lose a bunch of states because he has so many positions that are so fringe and unpalatable on many fronts. And you might not think that he does. You might think he's right about everything. But there does need to be a little bit of reading the room in alignment with principles. If you can run somebody in some state, you might think that they're the best bet. Like MTG, pre-downfall in Georgia, she was not the best bet. You want to be a team player, don't run. You're not helping. But she is a diva. That's all she stands for. There's so many of these people are divas and grifters. They don't care about anything other than trying to just climb the political ladder. And now I'm sure she'll try to run for president in 2028. Like, that's going to go over very well. Yeah, congratulations. The 413ers are actually going to be able to have a point if that's the case, and we don't want that to happen. You're not going to be the heir to this movement. You're not. You didn't build it. You came along. You're talking about how we needed work visas badly. Now you're bashing deportations. But you'll release a bill about H1B that is not going to go anywhere, even though I gave her credit for it, but it's just to spite Trump. It's just to spite Trump. It's not about anything else because she can't listen with whatever ears that she has to an interview properly because she's a low IQ person. And Trump hints at this later on when he says she's gone far left even doing The View with their low IQ, Republican-hating anchors. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. And Trump, I think, did the right thing. He didn't have to do this, but I was really enjoying the meltdown from all the usual suspects, losers and lunatics on the right and the left teaming up to say MAGA is dead when it's alive and well. These people are scumbags and have zero place in this. They should have no place in the discourse, but that's who runs the discourse these days. The online discourse is run by crazy people. These are people that should have zero place in it, but they're front and center. And you have the fringes on the right, you have the loud neocons, and they're scumbags too, and they feed off each other, and then the left is there, the real big enemy. They're rebuilding in real time. They are rebuilding because you people are stupid and cannot help yourselves and cannot control yourselves. You're so low impulse. I mean, we have even people like Richard Barris that are on a ridiculous downward spiral. What is going on to this movement? What is going on before our very eyes when we see so many people posting so many stupid things and propping up so many stupid people that are the enemy and that want us to fail? I don't get it. It boggles the mind. But anything for internet dopamine points, half of which are coming from India, the other half is coming from Pakistan. Nobody wins. We all lose. Real MAGA American patriots, real America first, not Gaza first, real America first. They get sidelined. They don't get a seat at the table. Guess who wins? The left wins. Congratulations. And I'm not dooming when I say that. I'm just saying that's their playbook. And if we don't get right, we're all going to die at the hands of some transgender communist dictator who sits there on Reddit in the Oval Office and goons for 12 hours a day. You know, that's what we're up against here. We're up against the far left. That's the final battle. But they want this division. They want these people, they want to disaffect actual, America first patriots from the discourse. They don't want to get them at the table. They want to kick them out of the table because they understand that the fake now it's like all they say is America only when they whine about Gaza 24/7. Yeah, you're America only, all right, Marjorie and all these other clowns. But it's like they are not going to win. They're like the based alternative, but they've gone past based into insanity. And then you have the neocons. You have the weaklings. You have the old guard. They want to be relevant again. They so desperately want to be relevant again. They want to shadow box against these people, amplify them, act like leftists. They don't even care if they act like leftists. They want to lump everybody in that box. They want to be insufferable, so they push well-meaning American patriots into that box, and then they can condemn them out. The whole thing is fucked up. Excuse the language, but it's true. The whole thing is a mess, and nobody's doing anything about it because everybody's gone crazy, and that's what it is. Donald Trump, I think, gets it. I think he largely gets it. I think Vance largely gets it. I think Vance doesn't want to seem like he's punching right because he understands it's a sign of weakness. But you could call up your friend and tell him he's off the rails. I mean, if my friend interviewed somebody for a 2-hour puff piece, said horrible things about my wife and kids, I would go over to their house and I would do maybe a little bit more than just talking to them. Nothing too harsh, but I wouldn't just let it slide. I wouldn't let it slide. I would say that's kind of fucked up. I would be a very stern talking to. Try to, not be too angry about it. But regardless, these people, they allow this to happen. They allow it to happen. And there's very few people that are sane left in this discourse. It's a sea of retardation. I don't know who's going to be this Moses to part it. It's not going to be me. I'm just the numbers guy. I can only do so much. Yeah, but all the other numbers guys are going downhill, so I guess I'm the only sane one in that department too. So the political scene, the post-Trump political scene, because yeah, he's still in the White House. That's true, but we had our first elections after him. We're going to have the first midterm after him, even though he's still there. The future of this movement, he's not going to be on the ballot anymore. He can hold it together. Few people can hold it together. Maybe Vance can hold it together. Charlie Kirk held it together. And it's going to be a big litmus test for what happens over the next year or so leading up to the midterms, because if this divide gets worse, maybe these people will flame out, they'll go to the wayside where they belong, or they're going to stay here and corrupt and try to poison the well with this movement, because that's not the answer either. It's a good thing Trump can realize it, but can what comes after Trump realize it? Because you have people that'll weigh him down. People that'll weigh the movement down. And then on the other side, you have people that will castrate it and hold it back. So the neocons are not off the hook here. They suck. They're awful. They feed off the fringe. I don't like them either. It's a false dichotomy, but that's the dichotomy the left wants. So people like me, people that actually get it, they're disaffected. They are disillusioned. I want to quit politics, but I'm not going to quit politics because that's what they want. They want that, and I'm not going to give it to them. I don't care. I don't care if I lose all my fans, all my followers. I don't care, because what needs to be said needs to be said. If I can get one person to understand that, I think it's a win. I'll lose everybody. I don't do this for the money. The money's good that we get from the channel, from the revenue, etc. It's not about the money, though. It's not about that. It's about the country. I'd give it all for the country. So many of these clowns won't do that because they want to grift for dopamine points, because they're just clowns that don't understand politics. And I'm not going to be one of them. There's very few people out there that get it, maybe 10 people that do in full. So that's all I can say. What all these people have been doing to Trump, doing to this movement, trying to just beat it down into submission, try to say MAGA's dead, all this stuff. You're going to eventually flame out, not what's correct, not what's right, not what's good. You're going to be the ones to flame out, because we've seen this before with all these people that rise up out of nowhere. It doesn't last. It never does. It never lasts. The media, however, this time is surprisingly, pushing them out to the forefront, which I think is something that people need to understand. If you have MTG going out there and going on The View, what does that tell you? Does that tell you that you're one of the few conservatives of the past 10 years that's like to the right of Lindsey Graham to set foot on The View? Chances are that should raise some eyebrows. Why is she allowed to do this? Why? Then they'll never ask. The people that'll question everything and twist themselves into a pretzel to blame Israel for everything will never ask the question, staring them right in front of them, right in front of their faces. They will never dare to ask a legitimate question that we actually should need to know the answers to. Even though we kind of do, and it's clear what they're doing, they never ask that because they love it. They relish it. Even if I tweet something negative about that, you'll be flooded with stupid people's responses, 7,000 this, 7,000 that. Tweet that, you won't be flooded with anybody because they don't have a response to it, because it's true. Because it's true. They want to destroy, because the left couldn't beat us. They couldn't beat Trump. They know, they're not going to win the Senate, possibly ever again. They're not going to really win the House, given what's happening. So what do they decide to do? And that's like in the 2030s more so than now, because Republicans can't redistrict to save their lives, and we could get into that discussion. But they say we're going to destroy you from within. We'll let it happen. We'll amplify the worst people. And what is that going to do? It will destroy the right, and they benefit, because if the right loses, who's winning? They win. Because it's like I said, the dichotomy of unpalatability, that's what they're making this thing, and we can't let that happen. So good on Trump for that. Good on Trump for that. But speaking of MTG, she's insane. She's going out there saying, I've been contacted by private security firms with warnings, which again, I disavow any of that if it's real. I don't know if it is. But she's saying, well, it's this is all because of men. I take threats from men seriously. Yeah, it sounds like a feminist liberal. You don't sound like a conservative. If that's real, I'm sorry. You shouldn't be getting that. Anyways, it probably is from the left anyways that's doing it still. But then she goes on CNN to say that, I apologize for the rhetoric that I've partaken in. Charlie Kirk's death taught me that we as Americans have much more in common than we have. She has things in common with like AOC and Ilhan Omar now, because she's anti-Israel and she's anti-Trump. Like, that's the discourse. She's apologizing for like being a fighter, which was like the only positive thing, even though she did it in a very unpalatable way, even when she was saying the right things. And you expect me to say that this woman is like, oh, she's the GOAT, she's better than Trump, they say. Really? I don't see that. If you're going to apologize to Dana Bash on CNN for rhetoric, you clown. Unbelievable. Yeah, for that alone, you should lose your primary. You shouldn't have a single Republican primary vote for that. I don't care who you are or what your voting record was 4 or 5 years ago or what bills you've proposed. I don't care, because you clearly are a spiritual leftist at the end of the day. And Trump can see it. He has a good intuition, better than I think a lot of people give him credit for, and you see it right in front of your eyes. So on top of that, we have this quote where she uses more left-wing terminology. Trump's vicious attacks are a dog whistle to dangerous radicals. So now she's like punching right, because the dangerous radicals, you're on the right. You're one of them, apparently. Like, I don't like playing into that framework, but like if we're going to use the way that like a political spectrum is viewed, like the far right doesn't like Donald Trump. I don't really think they really ever did. But they're just very impulsive children, maybe 2016, because they thought, they had a cartoonish view of politics or whatever. But, they were like reluctant in 2020, 2024. They didn't really want much to do with them. By and large, like actual, whatever she is, dangerous radicals. No, there's no dangerous radicals that would oppose you from the right. So Donald Trump is not dog whistling to people on the right. The people on the right are siding with you that you describe, and not Donald Trump. So why would the left? Is he dog whistling to the left? No. And the left likes you now, so I don't know what she's complaining about. Again, it's like this could lead to attacks, but it's not. And if it does, it's not right. It's something I'd condemn. But I don't see any evidence of it. She's talking out of her ass. This is how these people tend to operate. Time and time again, they serve the establishment system. They sound the same. She sounds like just use your ears. No matter where somebody is in the political spectrum, do you sound like a right-winger or a left-winger? Same thing goes for people that attack the fringe actors. If you're a neocon, if you're one of these people and you're using the same terminology, all these buzzwords the left uses, well, you're just, you're kind of helping them more than you think. And you need to just shut up and let me do it, because you don't know what the hell you're doing either. And that's my take on MTG. As for what Trump has done, we'll talk about the Epstein files. We kind of talked about Trump is now saying he wants to release them. Again, this is what MTG abandons him over, insinuates that Trump is a pedophile or protecting pedophiles or whatever. When in reality, he's saying release the files now. I don't know why he didn't say this sooner. I don't know why it just wasn't done. I guess he wanted to put the ball in their court just so they'd blow up in their face. I don't think he realizes how the discourse has deteriorated a bit because of the Epstein files and how the situation with Bindergate was, mishandled or whatever. But it's funny how he mentions that we're going to not fall into the Epstein trap, implying there is an Epstein trap that's a curse on the Democrats. Was this actually like 80-70 chess? You could make the case that it is. I don't know. We'll see what happens on that front. But then also you have this interview that sparked people saying MAGA's dead, because Donald Trump was asked a question about H1B visas. And then he says, well, we need some people. But he wasn't talking about H1B visas. So I think it's a problem when people talk past each other. Trump tends to kind of just do the weave in these interviews. We know that. We've watched Trump do this for 10 years. But you have people like Laura Ingraham that, didn't really try to grasp the situation well. I'm glad she pushed him on H1Bs. I think we should gut the program significantly. And this whole discourse gets screwed from this, because that'll bring out these other side of these, these basically bot farm accounts or accounts from India that say all these horrible things about Americans and white people, but will just call you like racist or whatever because you oppose H1Bs. And it's like they're just the easiest accounts to dunk on for sure. It's like the things that they say. It's like, this is a country there's not a lot of talent there, but they occupy the visa pool. That showcases there's some level of credential fraud in the system. We don't know how much, but it exists. There's a problem with the H1Bs. But what Trump said was not about H1Bs. He said, well, you have people that want to get out the Hyundai battery trainers because Americans can't exactly do the jobs. And he's right. You can't really make a battery for a car when the only people that know how to make a battery for that car are South Korea. I don't think that's like what Vivek was saying, oh, Americans are lazy or whatever he said over Christmas. I don't think it's identical. I think that there is nuance here for sure, but so many people don't care to grasp it. So many people just want to jump on it saying Trump is bad, Trump is evil, because they're morons. They're just idiots that are not worth our time. And of course you get some people that are in like the establishment wing, like Dinesh D'Souza, defending the H1Bs and trying to, I guess you would say going into the same mental framework as these other people, but saying that it's good and like calling out everyone racist if they don't want H1B. It's like, you sound like a liberal. We don't want immigration. We want to lower the numbers at least significantly, legal or illegal. We want to end illegal. We want mass deportations. That's what we want. I mean, you can't be importing all these people in jobs when you're losing jobs, cutting jobs in an economy, you have a contraction. You shouldn't be having any work visas at all. And if anything, when somebody's here on a work visa, it should be temporary and the job posting should stay open and any American at any time should be able to be hired for that job. That would be the ideal program. That would be, but they don't want that. Both sides of this, both sides you have stupidity when it comes down to this, but they interpret it the same way, which is the most frustrating thing of all. All the worst people interpret it the same way. And Trump isn't wrong about the Hyundai battery trainers. I don't think that that's an example of work visas that I would oppose, because if it's creating American jobs, they're training American workers, and then they're leaving, that's good. Like, should we not want those jobs? These are people that are going to be there temporary from South Korea to train American workers. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think people should, because it's necessary and it's temporary. And that's what Trump is saying. And, when Trump says we need a lot of people, the most people ever, it could be like 30 people. I mean, you know how Trump talks. I mean, he exaggerates. It's part of his signature. And he says a lot of people, I'm winning by a lot. And he's up in a poll by like 1. And that's not to bash Trump. That's the way he talks. But you should understand that by now. But you don't want to. And some of these people are smart enough to know that, but maybe they're just like they don't have enough emotional intelligence to grasp it because they want to be catered to like the little children that they are. And then we get the discourse in just disarray and mess because of it. And then you get all the worst people piling on. MTG piles on with the drive-by shot. And then she gets disavowed, retracted, withdrawn from DJT himself. So we'll get into the super chats for sure. But it's like a lot of these people that grandstand, they don't get it. They will grandstand, which again, you could say, well, it's technically they support the principles. But what does it get? It doesn't help you win. Trump realizes that. Thomas Massey could say all the right things, but at the end of the day, if you're not voting for and you're holding up the big beautiful bill, you're not even getting anything you really want in there, and you don't like the immigration side of it entirely, and you're supporting all these Cato Institute type things. I don't have to like you. I don't have to like this guy. You're not going to make me like this guy. You could call me a Trump cultist all you want. I don't care. I'm just siding with reality. I mean, we've critiqued Trump probably 4 times in this stream so far. You want to say it's a cultist? It's good faith criticism. It's not bad faith criticism. It's like, yeah, the economy's not doing that hot. I'm not blaming Trump for that. In fact, when it comes down to the tariffs, we crunched the numbers. The average person is paying like $9 a week because of them. $9 a week, which you could say is extra, but they're making more than that in wage growth. The problem is we're not making new jobs, and it's because we're in an AI bubble, and I wish the messaging on the topic would be better. And some of the tariffs he is reworking, as I said that he should, and he's doing it. We don't need a tariff on coffee when coffee is, mostly you can't really have coffee in the U.S. anyways. Like, maybe Hawaii, you can have some coffee, but it's like you don't need a tariff coffee He's reducing the tariff on coffee. Beef tariffs are not causing the problem regarding tariffs. That being said, it's also true that the beef, we don't have enough beef here compared to what we'd probably need. So he's reducing the tariffs on beef so the prices go down, which, it's a mixed bag on that front. But regardless, the tariffs are not the problem with the economy, but he's reworking them, and I think that that's a positive thing. I'm for protectionism. I think the whole thing is directionally correct. I just think that, you can say some cases it's been too much too fast, and I think that Trump is realizing that, which is good. So, there's no level of criticism. There's no level of criticism at all on that front that's like out of bounds or saying that the movement is dead or needs to be burned down or all these other people. Like, enough is enough. So, Tucson PaleoCon for 5 says F in the chat for the folks who didn't buy their Amfest tickets in time. Well, I think they got sold out, but thank you for the 5. And by the way, 10 out of 20 to our goal. Sedan DeVille Bears says Kentucky, you're not sending their best. I don't know what's going on there. You got that one dinosaur in that one seat. Forgot his name, but he's been there forever. I mean, it's not even just Paul and Massey. There's a lot of people in Kentucky that are, McConnell. And who knows who's going to be his replacement, because as much as I like Nate Morris, I don't know if his campaign is really getting off the ground there as much as I'd like it to. Paractorius for $50 says the conservative movement is growing. Argentina's libertarians won a bunch of seats. Panama elected a conservative populist president. Chile, which this is true, I saw this today, is about to elect a very conservative president, and Bolivia just inaugurated. Yeah, and again, this is true. It's an indicator, and right-wing populism across the globe is surging. And this is why the left tries to destroy the right. They're trying to destroy it. And everybody that's like the bad faith actors are being loud. They're playing along. They want the post-Trump mantle. And I don't think that they should be getting it. I don't think they've deserved it. You could say Vance will hold it together. Well, we'll see. I hope so. Giblet6371 says, I feel like according to polling, a Democrat candidate would have to run on universal basic income and a moratorium on migration to win in 2028. Well, if anything, that is not going to happen. The open borders lobby has a stranglehold on a lot of politicians, which is precisely why they love a nice distraction like AIPAC talk. But, these people will not allow that on the Democrat side. It's possible on the Republican side because enough of the primary voters get it. And I could see like a negative income tax type of thing. The libertarians, if anything, should be on board with that. I just don't like this notion of UBI, because what UBI does is it makes people lazy. We want the American dream as much as possible. I know it's not going to look the same in 2050 as it did in 1950. I'm not dumb. I'm not an idealist. I understand that. But this whole other side of things of like a UBI and people get to just stay home and get their neat bucks, whatever. It's like whatever Andrew Yang ran on. I don't think that that's something that's going to be the answer. I don't think it's going to work. American Nerd 76 for 10 says, my opinion on Large Marge. If someone constantly flip-flops on the issues like immigration, grandstands with people like Massey, craps on Trump on a leftist propaganda show, The View, I support them. I agree. But then you get these other people that'll say, well, Trump likes Lindsey Graham. It's like, Lindsey Graham votes with Trump, and I have my criticisms of Lindsey Graham, and if I lived in South Carolina, I'm probably voting for his primary challenger, but mainly because he watered down the remittance taxes. But the way Trump sees it is like Lindsey's going to support him no matter what. He golfs with him, and Trump can keep him at bay. Like, it's not like this guy's not the end of the world. He's not good. I'm worried about what could happen in like a Vance administration with Lindsey Graham or some other administration, and he'll bend over backwards for some of these Democrat presidents. He did it for Obama. He did it for Biden. He'd do it for Newsom. I'm not a fan of the guy entirely, but the way Trump sees it for the remainder of his term, he knows Lindsey Graham is going to be loyal to him, and he doesn't see a reason like to oppose him. You could say it's selfish, but it's not like at the end of the day, he comes through. These neocons will come through more than the grandstanders when push comes to shove at times, and I think that's telling. I'm not a neocon, I'm not going to defend these people, but they do more for Trump, so Trump is going to reward them with more. But, it's the way it is. Roku fan says, thoughts on the Mexican riots? I have none. I don't even know what's going on down there. American Nerd 76 for 2 says, ironically, MTG used to support billions to... Yeah, exactly. I mean, these people turn on a dime. For what? You're telling me it's all organic? You're telling me there's no, everyone says it's always AIPAC, it's always foreign money relating to Israel, whether domestic or foreign or whatever, but they'll never talk about the other sources. It's not just Qatar. You hear a lot about Qatar. It's not just Qatar. There's plenty of other countries, plenty of other Gulf states. Yeah, I know Russia is what the left has talked about. China is what a lot of these neocons have talked about. They also have a great deal of influence one way or another through the different avenues. It is true. There's all sorts of channels for different things, and we see the discourse now with the subcontinent getting broadband. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and these bot farms, whether they're real people, not real people, whatever, they clearly support these issues. If you took the internet away from the subcontinent, you banned X in those countries, I think the discourse would significantly improve. Because a lot of the brain rot from, the pro-immigration side is in India. A lot of the brain rot from the, Israel myopic side is in Pakistan. And they feed off each other. They really do. It's all fake. The whole thing is fake. And so many people want to legitimize this nonsense. It should make you mad. American Nerd 76 says, are there any top primary contenders against... I don't have any off the top of my head. There's some guy that is like on X that has like a Ukraine flag in his bio and calls himself a centrist. And that's not going to win a primary, under any circumstances in rural Georgia. I'm sorry. But we have a retracted member chat. I don't know who sent it. Real Texan Politics is, how much of the national popular vote do you think a Massey Green independent ticket get in 2028? 1. But again, that could play spoiler, and that would not be good. Now, Massey and Green get along a lot better with a J.D. Vance for now than they get along with a Donald Trump. So there is also that stipulation. But let's say Vance doesn't run, or he loses the primary, which is unlikely but not out of the question. What happens then? Who's going to be that candidate on the Republican side? Are they going to be able to, these people serve to spite people. Massey, they're in this corner. Massey would probably oppose J.D. Vance because, Vance is too much of an economic liberal. MTG will find a way to, oppose him as well. If she keeps going down the road of, being friendly with the establishment and the fringes of the far, at the same time, on both sides, is she really going to be somebody Vance associates with? Vance does try to be this guy who gets along with everybody, but past a certain point, I'm not saying he has to be a libtard disavowal, type of guy making statements all the time. But if people are going to be a thorn in your side one way or another, I think it's good to keep them at bay somehow. I'm not saying he's not doing that, but I don't know. We'll see. Giblet 6371 says, if you primary MTG, won't that open a potential Democrat to... No, it won't. I mean, it's an R+40 district. This glass of water could win that district with an R next to its name against the most well-funded Democrat ever, just because of how red the district is. Doug for 2 says, what's the future hold with Nick Fuentes? I don't know. And that's the thing. You have this guy who is now, like I said, he's AstroTurf now. They'll never ask that question. They'll never ask why he's allowed to exist in the mainstream. They'll never ask it, but he is, despite all the things he's not only said but also done, and the mountains of dirt on him, and even the Ghislaine Maxwell type of stuff that he's done, bringing around known and people he knew were pedophiles into a movement to prey on 15-year-old boys, and then shaming the victims because he thought that them speaking out against it would make him look bad. And then when confronted on it, he calls it a quote-unquote, and this is his words, not mine, Jewish lie. This is the guy that seriously is going to be a net asset To any political movement, the answer is no. And I'm not going to legitimize him by calling him all these names or going into some moral panic about some controversial things that he said, which are obviously not good. But at the same time, he doesn't believe in anything. He is a grifter. He is loving the attention. He loves the role he gets to play. He's anti-Trump, 99% of the time, unless Trump gets asked a question about him and says, I don't know this guy. And then he's like, oh, yeah, look at me. He didn't disavow. It's just, you're a clown, dude. You're literally a clown. You're 5'5". You're a gooner. You're into tranny porn. And you just grift the whole time. Like, that's it. That's the only message you really need. But so many of these people don't get it. They're enabling him inadvertently. And again, the guy's a scumbag. We've seen what he's done. We could go over the dirt for hours. We're not going to do that. But the main takeaway is he will probably at some point flame out. You look at somebody like an Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, the dirt was always there, but the haters were insufferable. So many well-meaning people said, oh, I'm going to give this guy attention. Obviously, Andrew Tate seems a little bit cooler. He's got the cars, he's got the muscles, he's got whatever, more so than this other guy who's just, says edgy things and is somewhat rhetorically talented. Now, Andrew Tate gets to a point where all the dirt's out in the open. He plays, oh, they're trying to come after me. It's the system, whatever. And, well, turns out that a lot of it is, it's unethical and turns a lot of people off. And nobody really talks about the guy anymore, but he was the most Googled man ever. So, again, he probably flames out. I think this whole thing flames out, but the left at least tried to undercut Tate. The left is propping up Fuentes for one reason or another because they understand he's a wrecking ball. They understand that he has rhetorical talents. He, in short form, when they play certain things that he says, it can go viral. That's what they're trying to do. In reality, what does he do? He tells people to not vote in elections that matter, including for Donald Trump, while praising Kamala Harris and praising Tim Walz, saying Tim Walz was who J.D. Vance thinks he is, while attacking J.D. Vance's family, attacking his wife, attacking his children. Like, there's no place in the movement for this guy. So the fact that anybody wants to legitimize him is beyond me. And that goes for Tucker Carlson, who I think that the moral panic about Tucker in general is coming from a lot of insufferable people who want to do it to sink Vance, but the guy's fallen off. And I think that that's also true, and that's also reality. So American Nerd 76 is what if MTG ran for Senate? Well, she'd lose, so she should run for Senate. She'd lose. She'd get out of Congress. Have her run for Senate. Have her run for governor. She's getting her ass kicked in the primary, by the way. She'd lose the primary, which is the most important thing here. American Nerd 76's rep should. Well, I don't think it's a good thing. If it's emotion when you get fired up, it's one thing. But on the flip side of the whole thing, it's like it is obscenity. It's not something I condone. Just swearing for the sake of swearing. BRGRS 1337 for 10 says, how is it America first for Trump to endorse? We already went over the Lindsey Graham stuff. But like, it's just the same repeated talking points over and over again. Like, I understand the concern. Lindsey Graham, he is a swamp creature, but he never gets in Trump's way. I think the remittance tax was not good, but still. American Nerd 76 says the DOJ should investigate her for insider trading. Yeah, I'd rather the DOJ go after the left. I know MTG is somewhat of a enabler of the left herself, but I'd rather them go after the left before they go after her. Giblet says MTG's a covert op feminist. This is why I don't trust women in politics. They just go with the internet trends for it. Well, look, I don't think it's every woman in politics. I think it's a lot of women in politics that do this. And there's a lot of men who do it and act like women in politics. And we know who a lot of those people are. So, yeah, sassy with Massey, by the way. But, there's a point to be made that she's a diva. And there are men that are divas in politics. There's more women in politics that are divas that, they'll just pay these female influencers to do something because it's like, oh, they'll capture the attention because they're women or whatever. And it's like, it doesn't really, it can be used for negative purposes. And it's mainly a thing on the right because the left doesn't really have very many. And MTG, I wouldn't say like fits into the whole e-girl dynamic because she's, you know, a congresswoman. She's not like a woman who's propped up for her looks in any way, shape, or form. But MTG, you know, she's a diva. You have a lot of divas. I think it's a problem that goes far beyond like women in politics. But yeah, if you're a woman in politics and you get criticized and you say you're a sexist, act like a man. Man up or get out of the way. That's what I say. You think it'd be easier for somebody that does all these pull-ups like MTG, you know, flexes how much she can lift nonstop. You think she'd be like a little bit more, a little bit less like feminine or feminist in that front. But no, apparently that's not entirely how it works. She'll still play that card for one reason or another. I don't know. You tell me why. You tell me why. But Gastometer H-Force is running on an anti-Israel message is the future. Iowa doesn't. No, see, this is the problem with this because anti-Israel messaging, nobody cares. The conflict's over. You want to sit here and tell me that they should run, like, what's your number one issue? In 2028, Israel, actually. Like, no. Like, if the conflict was ongoing, you're giving them, like, $800 billion a year, like so many people think we are, then maybe you might have a point that it's an issue for some people, or like in a platform where we should say, like, cut the foreign aid. Which apparently Netanyahu goes out there and says, yeah, you know, we need to become a little bit more independent from the U.S., which is great. I think it's a great thing. Whether you believe it, trust him or not, I think it's a good thing that he's even saying that. Like, you should be happy if you actually care about foreign aid that he's even saying that, but you don't. A lot of people don't. They don't care. That's the problem. Like, yeah, I think it would probably be a little bit better if you know, we didn't have AIPAC meddling in primaries and things like that. I agree. Although I'm more than happy to say take out MTG and Massey and all the people that are compromising this president's agenda. So, again, no, your messaging, it doesn't matter. It's a pet issue for schizoids on the internet because they don't understand nuance. This is what Israel talk is. I don't want to talk about Israel all the time, but I'm forced to because of people like this. Clowns. I don't want to talk about it. The conflict's over. We shouldn't be talking about it at all. But this is, you know, what we have to talk about for one reason or another. And I agree, the pro-Israel side has completely dropped the ball with the younger generation in messaging. This is what Charlie Kirk wrote a letter to Benjamin Netanyahu about, and everything he says in that letter is technically correct. Now, Charlie was probably a little bit more invested in Israel than I am, but everyone thinks that I'm like some op or something, which is interesting to think about, but it's not true. I just don't like stupid people. Like, that's always been, when we attack the election mafia, we don't like stupid people. When we attack the left, when we attack people on the right, the neocons that don't want to win, we're attacking stupid people. You know, if somebody came in here and said the right should run only on being pro-Israel in 2028, I would say the same thing, that it's stupid. But it's like I attack stupid people, and they're mostly on one side, and then I get hit for it. Like, I don't care. I don't care anymore. I'd rather just have us win than any validation from anybody. It doesn't matter. It literally does not. Nate Thomas says Trump needs to fully ignore these judges and who unconstitutionally strike down his orders. A federal or state judge has no authority. Well, yeah, he's winning at the Supreme Court, too. He should just cite that as precedence and move forward. Like, judicial review's a precedent. It's not in the Constitution. We've had presidents defy it before, from Jackson to FDR to plenty of other people. And if you know it's going to be overturned, just keep shoveling them through. Tie them up in the courts. Just keep writing them over and over again. Find a way. Trump always bends the rules. He doesn't break them. He bends them, and he wins. That's why the left doesn't like him. That's why they call him names. That's why they freak out at every little thing that he does. It's because he bends the rules to win. That's it. That's all he does. That's all he needs to do. But Nate Thomas says, I support your honesty and willingness to criticize Trump. I'm a proud constitutional conservative, not afraid to criticize. Well, the thing is, there's a difference between good faith and bad faith criticism. If I say this economic messaging isn't working, that's good faith criticism. That means I want him to win. If I say he's horrible because he gave peace in the Middle East, And I'm just going to complain about him being like, if first of all, if Israel controls Trump and Trump wants peace in the Middle East and gets it done, even if it's temporary, how on earth is this supposed to be like a knock on Israel? Like, their logic doesn't even add up. Their logic doesn't make sense. Yeah, we need peace. We need Abraham Accords. We need peace in Ukraine and Russia. We need peace all over. This notion that we're supposed to like sit here and whine about a foreign country all day the size of New Jersey. Yeah, well, you say you're America only. I don't believe you are America only. Like, you're not. Americans only. Americans first, yeah. But even like this whole phrase America only, even though it's technically something I think that we should be only concerned with our citizens, but first and foremost, if you have an opportunity to end a conflict overseas, do it. Keep enemies at bay, do it. Like, it is America first. Trump's not a neocon because he happened to strike a nuclear facility in Iran and they were too chicken shit to respond. Yeah, that's not neoconservatism. If it is, it's the first working form of it, like ever. And it's not even a bad thing. It's called realism. It's America first realism. I don't think people that hate the United States, it's like you could say, well, weapons of mass destruction, all that stuff. But it's like, we had a ground scale invasion of Iraq to find nothing. We knew what Iran was doing. They were far from it, but we still made it a point to just send a warning shot and take it out. And everyone's panicking. The panicans panic again. World War III. Where's the World War III? I'm waiting for it. That's the thing that I think turned a lot of people insane. And somebody like Rich Barris going out there saying Marco Rubio should be the nominee, not Vance, because we need a neocon to lose to AOC and get steamrolled. It's like, are you on drugs? Like, seriously, I have a lot of respect for this guy. It's disheartening to hear people deteriorate like this. It's disheartening. It really is. I don't mean that in bad faith. I hope the guy, realizes reality. I hope all these people do. I'm not going to cancel anybody that is just being dumb. I just want you to stop. Like, that's it. And if you don't stop, I'll say not so nice things. If you do stop and start saying good things, I'll say nice things, because that's what I do. I'm an analyst. It's part of the job. It's part of the process. And I want to win. I want this country to win. And if you're freaking out over every little thing or coming up with absurd electoral takes that are not going to age well, I can't help you. You might have a good track record, but you're leading people off a cliff, like with like this profit mentality. I'm not saying he's doing that himself, but it's like some of the other people that I see that are defending, it's like, just because somebody has good takes, not all of my takes are good. You don't have to take everything I say to heart, but I think the overall sentiment of this, civil war, whatever you want to call it, the positions I've taken are sound. It's like, I don't like the neocons. They're weak. People that freak out over everything, people that feed the fringe are awful, and so is the fringe. And it's not really punching right either way in my book. It's just kind of parting the sea of retards. It's kind of like, if anything, like a centrist type of thing, which I'm not a centrist at all, but I'm saying, like, if you have a lot of loud people that don't get it, and you're like the sane voice, it kind of feels like that. It's like, this is what the average centrist must feel. The difference is the average centrist will go out of their way to not have I guess you would say, coherent ideology or whatever. They just like being centrist for the contrarianism. It's like, I have a coherent ideology. I have things I want to accomplish. I've written policy platforms that are very, very long. We want to give them to the next president that's willing to enact them. They're still a work in progress. Like, I've done a lot just on my own, and we want to win. I want to, have a vision for this country. These people don't have a vision. They just want to be either, go back to losing elections where they're in charge of the party in case of the neocons, or in case of the fringes, they just want to be edgy, which will also lead them to irrelevancy, because it's not like you're edgy in the fact that you just like don't give a F about, political correctness like Trump and just tell the truth. Then you go out of your way to be edgy for the sake of being edgy, and you don't actually believe in anything, because when you're confronted on it, you just say things like $7,000 and Jaceberg and all this nonsense. It doesn't get us anywhere as a movement or a country. And It's like we don't really have a leader of the online. Even Trump's not online. He doesn't have to be. He's president. People that are asking a lot from him are wasting their time. So you tell me. And even Vance is doing his job. These are people like Charlie Kirk was online. He saw it. He was an influencer. He did a lot more than just that, but it's like losing him. The left kills him. They take him out, and then they get exactly everything they want. Like, yeah, the discourse was not good on September 9th, 2025, but it's gotten far, far worse since then. So it's going to continue to spiral. Giblet says 44 million on SNAP is not sustainable. It's why groceries are expensive. Deporting the illegals will take more than 4 years, but will open up wages. Yeah, it's and again, if Trump doesn't deport 10 million in 4 years, like it's not the end of the world, because if he gets like 6 or 7, that's a lot of the problem. That's far more, because there's probably 15. Some people say 30. I don't buy those numbers. Like, certain places have a lot. That's true. We need to get them out, but there's maybe like 15 to 20. If you get 7, like within 4 years, that's a win. If we get 10, that's awesome. If you get 15, you might not have any left to get rid of. You're going to have to be going door to door, which I think we should go door to door. There's no reason not to. You're either a citizen or not. Whether they want to fearmonger about it, it doesn't matter. It's all a scare tactic campaign. The reason why Hispanics are not showing up for Republicans in New Jersey and Virginia is not the deportations, it's the economy, which is a whole nother thing. But you know what happens when you enact these mass deportations? The economy improves. And that means you're getting more Hispanics and you're getting more everybody than ever before, because it all rests on the economy. If the economy is doing well, nobody cares about a lot of these other things. And it's why you didn't have as much division in Trump's first term as you did in his second term, because the economy was doing well. And he made it a lot better than it was when he took office with his own actions. And we'll see what happens. But the whole Great Reset, COVID, everything like that, the whole economy's been thrown off. It's been decimated, especially under Biden with his spending that broke the camel's back, and it's just a big mess. But we have to clean it up. We don't have a choice. American Nerd 76, did you see Vance's interview on Hannity? I did not. Scott says nobody's coming to save you. It's the pilot's job to keep the plane in the sky so you can make the most of your own life. Marilyn Degatti says, is there any hope for the right to unite? Well, whatever tweet that Matt Walsh put out, in wake of the Jay Jones stuff and the group chat stuff, he was right. He wasn't wrong. Like, people always, they just want to, you have the worst people on the other side of that argument taking this and saying, I don't want to unite with this random influencer. Nobody asked you to. Like, the right should stay united. That doesn't mean that we need to legitimize bad faith actors. It just means that you don't throw people under the bus because the left is attacking them. Like, that's literally all he was saying, and he's right. There's a lot of ideological diversity in the right wing, more so than the left wing. At this stage in the game, it's a big tent. The good faith, parts of the tent need to stay united. And so many, legacy neocons are throwing a temper tantrum at that because why? Because you decide to read into his tweet wrong. The whole thing is stupid, and you're too up your own ass to understand what's going on. You're too up your ass to understand. I just, so many of these people. It's not just the fringes. They are a problem, but you have the enablers. You have people that are antiquated. Their mindset is antiquated. They attack the fringe the wrong way whenever they do it. And then they throw people under the bus for doing things like saying, I want less immigration. Okay, well, what are you conserving? You can't even conserve the state of the country if you're importing a bunch of people who will radically transform the country en masse. Maybe not all of them will, but a good portion of them will, and that's too much to risk at this stage in the game, especially when you have a shitty economy that's due to Biden and not so much Trump or the tariffs as we've demonstrated. But you got to make it better, and I think, cutting work visas as much as you can, it's the way to go. American Nurses Massey Graham would get 0.01. I wouldn't say that. I think they'll get more than that. But it is true that a lot of their voters would probably vote Libertarian Party anyways. I don't think they're peeling off a good chunk of the real life base, just like Elon Musk with his idea that he's abandoned, thankfully, with the America Party. King Caboose says we can't be afraid to criticize Trump in good faith on H1Bs and Chinese students. We also can't forget who are true. I agree. I thought that the statement was not a horrible statement, though, that he made, because he wasn't talking about H1Bs. The Chinese students thing, I'll even criticize with you. Yes, it's a status quo. He's not adding 600,000 Chinese students, but he's like, the universities would go out of business. I say we don't need that many colleges if they're propping up all the colleges, which is not true. But it's just a statement that I don't think is doing him any favors with anybody. So I would probably not, and maybe he's saying this for other reasons, and there's also the other side. We understand at this stage in the game that there is a thing called negotiation. Trump is negotiating with China. Do you think he's going to, he may not want to antagonize China one day and say, we're going to remove all these students. I think we should. I don't think we should at least make sure we don't take any additional in the incoming classes. A lot of these students, they'll go on campus, they'll drive their BMWs, and why are they there? They don't have to be there. If you have so many smart people in China, why can't you have universities there that are state of the art? Why do they have to go to Penn State or Virginia Tech or something like that? You don't need that. You don't need that. Giblet says, "Hey, I'm fine." Well, it's deeper than that. When we say these insults, it's just to call out how ridiculous of a concept these people are when they're talking about their warriors, and it's like this is your goat. Like the only reason why people prop this guy up is because A, they don't know the lore, or B, they just want to spite the neocons who suck. But there's no legitimate reason to consistently shill for people when you understand what's going on. A lot of people don't know, or they, rightfully have these nationalist propensities, and they don't channel it the right way. And maybe it's because there's no alternative to that. And I think it's a problem. When you get people like Dinesh D'Souza, and I'm not just talking about immigration, but he's going out there saying, oh no, the houses in the 1950s were cheap because they were smaller. And it's like those houses still exist, and they're way more expensive. So if you want to go down that road and talk about that's why houses are harder to get these days, it doesn't matter. Capitalism is good, and that's true, but you can't have the system we have and expect it to work. You have to make changes. Same thing goes with trade. Maybe not all of Trump's changes are going to be beneficial, but he's willing to tweak them. But you're reforming the system, and that's a good thing. So whatever system we have now, the housing market's broken, and you're saying, oh no, these people are just these young people are entitled for opposing Reaganism. It's like, where are these people going to go? Where do you think they're going to go if you're just pushing them away? Especially when you're weak on things like immigration that are worth being strong on, and maybe if you do have your foreign policy, you're a little bit over the top when it comes to Iran, where you want a full scale. I'm not saying he does, but you have some people that do. You have some people that were calling Charlie Kirk an anti-Semite in 2023 because they were taking his statements out of context. Those people are not helpful. They're not being helpful either, and they embolden the fringe by being lunatics, and they need to be called out too. If we're going to be completely honest here, there's no side is on that argument is fully innocent. You got James Lindsay running around attacking Nikki Haley's son, calling him his little favorite term, woke right, that nobody can seem to define because the definition keeps changing, because he says that the right, or that we need people to address issues like housing. Now, Nikki Haley's son is actually very solid, very actually based, believe it or not. You wouldn't even believe it. But he gets it on all the issues better than so many people do. And then you're attacking this guy for having a good opinion and saying the right needs to address these issues. He says, you sound like a leftist 10 years ago. Well, who was a leftist 10 years ago? James, you were. So the whole discourse is a mess, if we're going to be honest. I just feel disillusioned, but then again, that's what the left wants. That the left is the real enemy here. They'd rather have the left would love for people to talk about Charlie Kirk being killed by Israel or by his widow, according to some schizoids on the internet, or so many, or camera, or TPUSA, or the Trump administration, all these theories. The left loves it. Why do you think they give Candace Owens a free piece in the media? You think it's because she's a threat to the system? You moron. You think she's a threat? You think she's really a threat to the system if they're propping her up nonstop? Really? You think these people are threats to the system? Get the head out of your ass. Seriously, I just can't tolerate it. I can't take it anymore. There's so many stupid people on the internet. We love dunking on them, but it's like you can't deal with them. American Nerd 76 is, what if MTG runs third party for Senate? Yeah, well, it does. Honestly, fine. Good, because what that probably does is it forces a runoff easier. So you know what? She could do that. People will listen to that and they'll be like, this is just going to spoil it. If it's a runoff system, it's a runoff system. You might as well exploit it by running as many right-wing candidates as possible, or as many people as possible in general, to keep Ossoff below 50, make him attack both candidates, waste resources, legitimize both. Fine. That would work. Maybe a Democrat would jump in too, because they'd see it as an opportunity to keep Ossoff below 50. I don't have a problem with that. Real Texan Politics says we need more in the GOP like Brandon Gill and less like his father-in-law. If you know, I do know. And that's the thing. There are people that disagree with certain, positions that their family members hold. Brandon Gill's a great congressman. Dinesh has done a lot for, over the years. He's, dedicated his life to making like these documentaries or whatever to help the movement. That's true. But if you're going to be going out there just saying, he makes his brand on I oppose identity politics, and then you go on rants about all these professional whiteys, and it's like, I don't know how I'm supposed to take this guy seriously. The problem is you can't really have zero identity politics. You can't have it. I think less is probably good across the board, a healthy dose. You have your outreaches, you make sure you get your votes out in your different demographics, it's strategic, whatever. I think too much of it is not good. I think you get the far left and whatever. But at the end of the day, it's kind of hypocritical when people are out there doing this, but it's like, it's okay for some people, but not for others. That's where you lose me if you call yourself a right-winger who stands against it. I don't even say I fully stand against it in its full entirety, but I think that against it in excess is bad. I think if you have outreach here and there, we talk about anti-whiteness is bad, things like that. You could say that that's like white identity politics. I'd say I support the American identity as my identity politics overall. That's what I care about more so than any subgroup. Although it is true, correlation exists in terms of what nations, immigrants that you would let in would assimilate well based on that, for sure. I mean, who can uphold the West except for, as we've seen in the U.S., Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe. Maybe you have some countries in Asia that are similar, but they're still different. It's not the West. I don't think you should import a bunch of, Polish people or Norwegians into Japan. You're not going to have the same country. And I'm not saying there's people in the third world that can't come into the United States and be good Americans. Plenty of them can be better Americans than some of these self-hating supposed heritage Americans that we see places like New England and plenty of other places, which I think is a problem for them. But it's a tight rope to walk on for sure. But this whole notion of identity politics are all bad except when I do it. Like, there's so many people on the right that have that mindset. Mainly like you have people like Winsome Sears running a campaign saying, "Please elect me the first black female governor." It's like, that's not going to resonate well, because it is true, people on the right don't really resonate with identity politics in excess. If you have like a reception or something here and there, and you don't go too far into it where you're doing strange stuff. Like, I didn't think Trump needed to do some Diwali festival, but like, that's identity politics. It is. I don't think that was good. That's another point of criticism you could have for the admin. But it's like when you have people panicking because J.D. Vance doesn't put out a statement and they're in a panic about it. It's like, who cares? Like, he doesn't owe you a virtue signal. I don't know who the hell you think you are. Person who probably has never set foot in the United States and probably and hopefully never will is going to be the one complaining about that the loudest. So yeah, again, a lot of the talk is hypocritical. I think it's, again, across the board, and moderation is one thing. And I mean moderation, but then the people that just shout about it and then are just very identitarian when it comes to certain things, that's what I have the problem with. Because if you care more about, the Indian American identity than the American identity at large, that's the problem. That's the problem there. And I think a lot of these like H1B visa holders, as we've talked about, do have that sense of, they're a X first, not an American first. And I think that that's an issue. So it's not really about like an outreach that you'd have like for Italians or whatever. It should be something on that level, in my opinion, where it's not as important as it is. But I think that you also can't have a country if you can't realize reality that certain countries are going to come in and assimilate poorly. Because, again, you can't be too individualistic where you also import a bunch of people who support collectivism for their groups. Like, you can't be blind to that. But so many of these people are, and I don't think it's kind of counterproductive. Past a certain point, it's counterproductive. So there's that. Derek Adams said, I thought it was delusional for thinking Fuentes and Tucker on the right were idiots and why they were propped up. Thank you for speaking. That's the thing. If we're probably going to lose a lot of people just by saying anything negative about Tucker, whether they know about his recent turn or don't know about his recent turn. I understand that. I know I'm putting myself in a position where people are not going to like a lot of what I say. But if nobody says it, then we all just end up having idiots in the discourse. So maybe it's just a matter of just shouting louder than both, just saying whatever needs to be said. There may be 10 other people who get it with somewhat sizable followings, and that's fine. I think we know who those people are. But, if I'm going to be one of them, going to make noise where I can, because it's noise that needs to be made, whether people want to say it's being, paid by one side, or you'll have some people that'll do the other thing, and the whole thing's a mess. Real Text in Politics says, can't wait to see Dems go back to abandoning Epps. Oh, yeah. They'll go back to calling him a fascist and have another set of No Kings protests again. It'll die down because, again, Trump was never going to be in the files, which is why I was confused, at least doing anything negatively, which is why I was confused about the way the admin handled it. Now, when Trump said it's a Democrat hoax, a Russian hoax, he was right. And he gets credit where due there. Sometimes you question things and it turns out to be reality, but it's like also, why try to like appear like you play into the fact you don't want to release them? Maybe it's because you want to debate them. I don't know. Because it's not an issue a lot of people care about. And if he's vindicated, just like his tax returns, he gets to do a victory lap. It's very similar to his tax returns, actually. User says that guy said an anti-Israel candidate would win Iowa is crazy. Voters in a Republican it's a caucus in Iowa are very pro-Israel. X isn't real life. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like young people do tend to be less pro-Israel. And I say that because compared to the average boomer, I probably am less pro-Israel myself, even though I get called an Israeli shill. But I'm not anti-Israel. I'd like a good relationship with them. I think that they need to be more independent regarding aid. And apparently I think that if you look at polls of a lot of young Jews in Israel, they believe the same thing. Close to 50% say they want to be independent from U.S. aid. But nobody really wants to talk about that because, for the neocons, they don't have the ability to acknowledge what time it is. For the fringe, they don't have the ability to recognize nuance. They just want to blame Israel for everything, think that there's like this big hive mind, put all Jews in one box or whatever because it's lazy, it's cheap, it sells well, it's slop. And it is true, slop is necessary for reaching the masses because not everybody has all the time of the day to sit around and, engage with political content like some people do. But usually the people posting this stuff. But at the end of the day, the slop content can't go to like brain rot to the point where you lose sight of everything. And this is not a winning topic. It's not. Most people on the right are either pro-Israel or ambivalent, or if they're anti, they're usually not spurgs about it. You do have a rising segment of the younger generation that is, and I don't think it's a good thing. And I'm not saying we need to be full on pro sending all this foreign aid, whatever. If we do send aid, it's going to have to be conditional. That goes for any country, doesn't matter where it is. And that's the way it is. So it has to be real. It has to be viable. If it's not viable, you're just virtue signaling in general. Like take the moral side of things out of it. Temporal Forces says, "Hi, Rep. I wanted to ask what the % chance of the Supreme Court striking Section 2 down is. All too often when everyone has the chance to deal a death blow to the Dems they hold." I think it's higher than people think, actually. I don't know. It's higher than people think, though. Secession Now says, "Can't wait till Flint to start the AF." Well, I hope they start so they start a party. It's going to be a joke. It'll be like AFPAC 4. What did it happen? You're going to dox people for asking for refunds. Like what's going on here? Like the whole thing is going to be a mess. So yeah, let them start their own party because again, like they're such a fringe. But the problem is if you're able to make the discourse a binary between the neocons and these people in this generation, we're not going to pick the neocons, and I'm not picking either. At the end of the day, I just think it's better to start a viable like third way that can win, that can work, that isn't like full of retardation. Because either way, it's unpalatability is what they want to make it. They want to make it a dichotomy. The fringe loves it because they get to be relevant, and the neocons love it because they get to be relevant again. And the neocons probably win that battle in the real world because of who exists within the generations. And that is also true. Either way, the left wins because the neocons can't win an election. These people aren't going to be able to win an election, especially because most people just don't care about Israel, period. I think that's why you have a little bit of I wouldn't say like full-on resentment among younger people on the right, but you have a segment of the younger right that's like, yeah, all this like pro-Israel stuff is like astroturfed. And then people start asking questions that might be, I guess you would say, not so bad faith. And then the way they respond will turn these questions very quickly into bad faith. Charlie Kirk had a great way of dealing with this stuff. Now he's out of the picture. I don't know who's going to take that mantle up, but it's like, I don't know if anybody can or if anybody's willing to. I mean, maybe Vance, I guess you would say. But we'll see. Josh Final says, "Rep, thanks for the common sense takes. Yes, Trump bombing Iran is not neocon. It's America First realism." Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the way he did it under the circumstances. I didn't feel like it was you even had people that I like that were saying this is bad because it could lead to a war. And I mean, it's definitely risky. Just like taking out Soleimani was risky. I just think that the Trump admin knows this, and people that were saying that he's betraying his promises or his base or anything, like there's no war with Iran. You get the losers of the world saying, "We told you so, we told you so." No, you didn't. If anything, we told you so, because where the hell is the war? And it could happen, but it's not going to happen because Trump struck down a nuclear facility because these people are too chicken shit to respond. And what did that lead to? The end of the war between Israel and Iran, where Trump applied pressure to both sides. But apparently he doesn't do that, they say, because they think he's owned by Israel or something. The whole thing is a mess. It's all bad faith. Christopher Messer says, "You worried about Barris's takes given his..." I'm not worried about his takes. Look, I've had a lot of respect for Barris to the point where I don't want to even talk too negatively about him. But he will have these takes on the timeline that are just so absurd that I can't just sit back and say that this is like good. He's like yelling and screaming about Michael Whatley, saying he wants to run against him in the primary because Barris thinks he'll win. He's talking about how it's all Israel's making young people move away from Trump. The real world take about Israel is this. It is true that they don't want Trump to get the U.S. involved. I don't want Trump to get the U.S. involved in a war with Israel. But Trump got a peace deal done, and people are acting like Trump is just like starting a war. Well, like, it's absurd. Dave Smith, apparently, he was like, "Oh, I'm just for peace, man." He gets peace, and then he's like losing his mind over it, and it's because the grift will dry up. That's what it is. You can't give too much oxygen to these people. Like, it's become something we have to talk about, but like, you have to humiliate these people, make fun of these people, you can't be out here saying, oh, these people are, it's just racism, Nazism, all this stuff. It's like you sound like a leftist, even if the shoe does fit, which in some cases it does. Some cases it is a little bit of an exaggeration. But you have to attack these people properly if you actually want to beat them and they can't help themselves. So they play into each other's hands. Like Charlie Kirk was like the one person that like held it all together, and the dam broke of retardation on both sides, into the right, which already was breaking, to be fair, but this is just a big opening because of that. And it's just that we honestly lose sight of the fact that 2 months ago and one week ago, we lost somebody that was, in many cases, you could say a hero of the right wing. And that's what it should have united, should have focused on trying to be in the mold of him, because he knew how to win and he wanted to win first and foremost. And so many people don't want to win now. And they are, people saying on both sides of this argument, I don't want to unite with you, I'm not voting. I don't want to unite with you, I'm not voting. So nobody wins except the people that actually killed Charlie Kirk. The left, not some foreign government, not his family, not his organization or this administration. It was somebody who's a deranged liberal, probably some patsy for some liberal group. It made sense. I don't know, these people will train these people. Oh, you'll do it. You'll get away with it. You'll be a hero, this, that, and the other thing, just like we saw with Crooks. You don't think he was contracted in some way, shape, or form to take shots at Trump? Well, again, he is a liberal donating to Democrats, but he's also a registered Republican for some reason. They picked him out for that reason, probably because it would just spark a debate. It would spark a meaningless debate. Like, we understand he probably, whatever the guy who pulled that trigger was, we know that there was a larger group that probably was behind it, and probably some NGO, maybe some ties to elements of the deep state. Regardless, the whole thing is a whole psyop that so many people get wrapped up in because they play into their hands. They lose sight of what's right. But it's like you have Barris saying all this stuff. It's unbelievable. Like he's saying, oh no, Marco Rubio's Vance has to step aside. Rubio's a neocon, which is even debatable these days. But he's like, let Marco run and let AOC destroy. AOC cannot beat Marco. I don't care what the economy's state is in. Marco Rubio's not losing an election to AOC. Take a Great Depression on steroids for that to happen. It's like she's just a disaster. Whether she tries to pretend she's not or not, she's a disaster. Newsom is one thing. Newsom, I think, is, he's a sociopath. He's cunning. I do think he's overhyped. I don't think he's like a great candidate, but I do think that if the economy's bad, yeah, he can narrowly win PA. He can grift his way. And there will be a lot of buyer's remorse for that. But I don't think that's going to be what's going to happen. The economy's not in a good spot now, probably improves into a better spot by 2028. And if Trump's approval rating climbs just like 3 or 4 points, yeah, Vance is going to, I think, beat him. Especially because Vance is intelligent enough to combat a lot of these attacks. And Vance actually resonates a lot more than you would think with your Rust Belt voter, which is a good thing that in terms of Trump teeing him up to be a successor. And he understands that we need to use power to win, and we don't have to view the free market as a religion or anything like that. Doesn't mean the free market's not good. It just means that, we shouldn't be framing a policy based on principle. We should be framing it on its effectiveness. I don't support government-run healthcare, but can we use power to ensure that it's a more universally accessible thing? Yeah, and in many cases, it takes the free market to do that. But in some cases, you might need vouchers or something. I think that that'd be the best way to reform the Obamacare system is some voucher program. You strike deals with these insurance companies. It's like government and big business. They always team up for bad things. Can they team up for good things? It's possible. I know people are skeptical of it, but I don't believe, I may not be that cynical. But let's see. Secession Now says, God bless protect Iran, Venezuela, and our... Okay, thank you for whatever that is. BRGRS for 10 says, you don't like Tucker because he interviewed Nick. Tucker's been calling out the left and rhino for years. The show keeps getting bigger. Well, again, going to YouTube and getting views there is one thing versus overall influence. He's got a different audience, different market. In many cases, it's not even the United States that's paying attention to what he has to say. I'd love to see his channel analytics page. But that being said, in terms of his interviews, it's not just Nick. He's gone off the rails for a long time. In fact, I don't have a problem with him interviewing Fuentes. The offer's open invitation for him to even arguably come on here. The only difference is he's not going to take it because it's not going to be a friendly interview. And there's so much dirt on somebody, and they're a bad faith actor, and you still platform them, and you don't press them on literally any of it. That kind of shows you that it's not really like a valid, tough interview to give. I don't think that people need to be censored or canceled or anything like that. I just think Tucker has a platform. I think he's misusing it. I think it could be used much better. And the things that he says about, oh no, we gotta like Maduro and Moscow's better than Miami and all this other stuff. He's kind of a third worldist, and he's becoming it. That's kind of where a lot of this anti-Israel sentiment is kind of rooted in, is largely, we see it in third worldism. There's a reason why every far-right party in Europe, for the most part, is actually the most Zionistic party in each country. It's not because they're controlled by Israel. It's because they view Israel as like a model state. And much of Europe is cucked and oh, the poor Palestinians, oh, that sort of thing. That's what you get with the left. These people don't understand nuance. They don't know what they're really up against. In many cases, they serve the same establishment, which is why they get propped up by mainstream media. You're such a threat to whatever he calls the Jewish Zionist in the media. And it's you're getting op-eds written about you favorably by leftists in the New York Times. And George Soros' Open Society Foundation's promoting you. So again, how does this add up? So either there's two things. One, there's no conspiracy that you talk about in power, or B, you're not a threat to them. C, both. D, neither. I think it's a mix of both. There is a establishment. It's not just of one certain designation like they try to claim. Because it's, again, like I said, it's just cheap. It sells well. It gets pushed well for third world dopamine because you have a lot of anti-Israel, anti-Jewish sentiment in many countries in the world that are just recently are getting internet, so it sells. But we understand that. We know exactly what's at play here. We know exactly what's at play. So be my guest. They can say what they want to say. I'm just saying that this whole Tucker turn, and then you do have these people in these Gulf states and possibly Russia and a few other places that are kind of arguably tied into his orbit, and it's a strange thing. They always want to talk about foreign control. They'll never talk about that. No, if you talk about that, you're actually foreign. The whole thing is stupid. So that's kind of my take, and that answers the next question from RB11. Tucker's turn, it's just, in my opinion, he's not helping. It's not just Nick. It's so many other people. He talks about UFOs all the time. Gives MTG a glazing session. Thomas Massey gets a glazing session. He used to talk about the paleocon issues first and foremost. He doesn't touch on them nearly as often. It's only foreign policy. It's only to mainly attacks on Israel, mainly attacks on, in a way, Trump inadvertently. He won't mention him by name, but he kind of does do it to undermine him when he's platforming all these people that either did not or told people not to vote for him, or are telling people that MAGA's dead. MTG kind of plays into that. So many other people, brain dead historians that engage in this third worldist leftist virtue signaling. The whole thing is a mess. I like Tucker for what he's done over the years. I wish that he just stopped doing it. That's what I would say. But too many people, even his friends, just don't want to talk about it. It's I'm not saying be a leftist and try to cancel your friend. I don't want you to do that either. I just want you to say hey, this is not it. Just cut it out and move on. Nobody's willing to pick. Maybe people are picking up the phone and he's not listening, which I think makes it even worse. So that's my take on the whole Tucker thing. And the Tucker haters, are arguably the most insufferable of all because they make him bigger. They're legitimizing him. Like the way that they operate, they don't know the times have changed. They don't understand how to attack properly. A lot of this generation loves memes. They don't like this hall monitor nonsense. And the way they play into it is also stupid. So that's my take on Tucker. Ash K2 for 5 says, I'm not worried about Antifa losers, concerned about wine moms. They're pissed at us. They want revenge. Shay Jones is proof of that. Woke V2. Yeah, I mean, it's also, the big ticket split was not as big as we probably would have liked it to be, but Sears did drop the ball, and that's not good. It's not just the wine moms, though. It's, the Republicans can't turn out their voters enough. The Democrats are turning them out much higher rates, and I think the government shutdown did it, and I think the left just doesn't care about this stuff, and I think it's a mixed bag. The problem, you're mentioning the wine moms, which is a thing. They're not coming back to the GOP, for one. Many of them are not. Some of them are MAGA moms, too. Nobody talks about that, but it's true. But as the wine moms, it's partially, they're becoming Antifa. I think that's the main takeaway. They embrace this stuff for one reason or another. And a lot of them haven't voted red since probably Romney, or never voted red at all, and they're millennials, and they came into the fold of politics under Obama. There's so much nuance people don't get. Like, how many George Bush voters in 2004 are still alive? Like, maybe 70% of them at most. That's not really saying a whole lot, because a bunch of that coalition that the GOP wants to win back is dead. They're not coming back to life. If anything, they're voting Democrat now, but that's a whole nother thing. But no, I think the whole thing's a mess. Real Texan Politics is, I did like Tucker's interview with Stephen Toth, and that could help him knock off Crenshaw next year, could help him with name. Yeah, I mean, Tucker has done good things with his platform. When he does stuff like that, I don't mind him interviewing the Graham primary challenger either. I do think that when he's talking about the Nigerian Christians, though, and is basically saying that they're, glossing over the fact that there's actually a real genocide going on, that's it's the whole third worldist stuff is just strange to me, and I'm not going to turn a blind eye to it just because he was really good on Fox and I can call balls and strikes. If he gets his act together in full, which I'm not sure he's going to, and I'm not holding my breath, but it's I'm not going to do this you must apologize, your humiliation ritual routine. Nobody should do that. If they change their mind and approach, good. I think it's a good thing. It doesn't need to be some humiliation ritual routine. Same thing went for J.D. Vance changing his mind on Donald Trump and supporting him. And then he became vice president. He didn't need to apologize. In fact, that's what we talked about on our call that we had when he basically wanted my endorsement when he's running for Senate back in 2021, when he was not very well known and was polling at 2%. So, yep. All right. The session now is just doing a little bit of trolling, or maybe he's not. I don't even know. But we hit our goal. We'll probably wrap it up. I don't know if there's really anything in regular chat to read. Someone says something about Ben Shapiro. I'm not a Shapiro fan either, for the record. I think that a lot of what he says on economics is largely dumb. I don't think it's helpful. I think he's stuck in the past, and it's he understands it was, supporting Trump was good for business. You didn't want to be a Bill Kristol or a Joe Walsh or one of these people, but he's definitely he's not the answer either, for the record. I don't want to have to pick between, you're either for Tucker or this, or for the whatever's left of Tucker or Shapiro. It's I don't want to pick I don't have to pick a side there. You don't have to agree with me. I just don't have to pick a side. You can believe whatever you want to believe. I'm just giving my take on that. Yeah, Charlie Kirk, R.I.P. He's definitely... We definitely miss him more than I think we realize, which really says something, because that whole thing just was something that shook a lot of people to their core. And we gotta go after, we gotta make sure the DOJ is doing what they're doing, going after these people. Because it's not going to stop with Charlie Kirk. The left is going to continue. Just because we talk about the right and analyze what's going on within the right doesn't necessarily mean that, the left is gone away. Thoughts on Josh? I saw the Josh Hammer tweet. I thought it was horrible. It's also stupid and untrue. Like, it's literally the opposite. The most philo-Semitic group in the entire world are Western Europeans. That's a stupid take from Josh Hammer, and he's a pretentious guy, and I'm not a fan of him either. And Levin's a war hawk. Like, these neocons are not people that I like either, particularly. This is not a pro-neocon session. In fact, I critique the neocon approach when they attack the fringe because they enable the fringe. They feed off of each other. It's good for business for each of them because both of these groups should not be relevant, but they're occupying such a large space in a way that is out of touch with, I believe, the majority of the public when it comes down to the actual voters. And it disaffects young people even more because the young people who get it are on the sidelines, and those who don't, they listen to people who are just too base to vote. And who does that help? Helps the nursing home electorate on both sides, where the left is always teed up a victory when the left should be dying, but they're not. Like, you have them down to 1% health, and you just decide to fall over. It's unbelievable what the right does. Like, it's unbelievable. Like, if we don't correct course, yeah, the Senate is in play in 28. It's not really in play in 26, but it could be. And I'm not dooming. I'm just saying we have time, but we have to correct course. Candace is bitter because Charlie... possible. Entirely possible. What do you think about the Tucker-Ted Cruz interview? Well, he gives Ted Cruz a very, very, stern, strong interview. I'm not going to... I defended his Putin interview because it's like you're dealing with an adversary and foreign leader. You don't want to piss him off too much. I get it. Let him talk. We need to know what he has to say. I understand if you want to be combative about certain things. And at times he's interviewed Ted Cruz over the years and been combative in a good way. Even though a lot of people might have said it's like bad faith, but he was rightfully combative. Lately, it's like, you're super combative with this guy, which, again, Ted Cruz is Ted Cruz. He's whatever. But there's other people that are worth being a little bit more combative on, and you don't push back when somebody, like, praises Stalin and you promise him a softball interview. Little strange to me. A little strange. And the left doesn't even touch this topic for weeks. Until they ask Trump a question about it, and Trump is like, I don't know, Tucker's been nice to me, because Trump doesn't, he's out of the loop. It's nothing wrong with what Trump said. Trump is like, good free speech, he's supposed to talk to everybody, which is true, actually. It's a good statement that he made. I also think that, if Trump understood or watched the interview, he probably have a little bit of a different take, and that's okay too, because... Like, you see no pushback for somebody with a mountain of baggage in, like, what's supposed to be, like, you'd imagine a tough interview. And somebody, like, this guy's attacking Tucker Carlson's father, too, like, even recently. And he doesn't say anything about it. So, whatever. Real Texans, even to this day, Tucker lives in Ted Cruz's head. Yeah, Ted Cruz is, like I said, he's Ted Cruz. He's just there. I don't think he's uniquely good. I don't think he's uniquely bad. I don't think he's just a mediocre senator who blows the way the wind does, and that's it. And he's not very likable, and without Trump on the ballot, he would not have won by as much as he did. So that's it. But we'll end the show. It's been a good stream. I will see you guys next time. Like before you go, subscribe. Until next time, Red Eagle out.